Welcome to Talk Wave, making waves, one talk at a time.
Okay, so they basically learned that this is how you treat people.
Yeah, in a way.
Wow.
Others focus on power and control.
Okay.
The idea is that abusers are looking to dominate and exploit vulnerable people, for their own gratification.
So it's not always, purely about sexual desire.
Right. It can be more about the need to exert power over someone weaker.
That's disturbing.
It is. And often it's tied to, other factors like distorted beliefs about sexuality, intimacy, even the nature of childhood itself. It's a messed up puzzle.
Yeah.
And researchers are still trying to figure out all the pieces.
It's scary to think about. I mean, is there any way to identify potential abusers before they hurt a child?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's no, perfect way to predict who will become an abuser, but there are some risk factors, warning signs that experts have identified.
Okay, like what are some red flags that people should be looking out for?
Well, a history of abuse is a big one,
Right.
whether as a victim or a perpetrator. People who have experienced abuse themselves are statistically more likely to become abusers.
Okay, so that's more of a correlation than the guarantee. Got it.
Exactly. It's not about making assumptions. It's about, recognizing potential risk. Other warning signs might be, an inappropriate fascination with children,
Okay.
a tendency to isolate kids from other people, or, a pattern of minimizing or justifying abusive behavior.
That's chilling. It's a lot to think about.
It is.
What can people do if they suspect that a child is being abused or that someone might pose a risk?
The most important thing is to report it
Okay.
to the authorities. That could be law enforcement, child protective services, or even a trusted adult in the child's life.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate to speak up if something seems wrong.
Right.
You might save a child from harm.
That's really important.
It is.
We've talked about identifying risks, but what about prevention?
Yeah.
I mean, what can we do to stop this from happening in the first place?
Prevention is key, and it starts with education.
Okay.
We have to teach children about body safety, about healthy boundaries, and how to, recognize and report inappropriate behavior.
Right.
But it's not just about talking to kids. We need to educate adults, too.
Right, yeah.
Parents, teachers, caregivers, anyone who works with children, they need to know how to spot the signs of abuse
Yeah.
and how to respond.
So it's about empowering both children and adults to create like a culture of protection.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
need to break the silence around this issue.
Yeah.
Encourage open communication, support survivors, and work to create a society where children are valued and respected and safe.
That's a great goal.
It is.
This deep dive, this whole conversation has been really heavy,
It has.
emotionally challenging.
Yeah.
We've really been looking at the darkest parts of humanity and trying to understand a system that, sometimes fails to protect those who need it most.
It does.
But I think, even in all of this darkness, there is hope.
Absolutely.
We've seen how dedicated law enforcement officials are, how tirelessly child protection organizations work, and how resilient survivors can be.
That's right. It's important to remember that, even when faced with these horrible acts, there are people fighting to protect children, to support survivors, and to hold perpetrators accountable.
And we can't erase what these children have been through.
Yeah.
But we can honor their strength by working to prevent this from happening to others.
Absolutely.
We all have a role to play. We've talked about the impact of this case. We've talked about adoption and even the psychology of people who abuse children.
Right.
But there's another part of this story that I think we need to really unpack.
Yeah.
And it's something that's becoming more and more common, more and more concerning. And that's the whole issue of child sexual abuse material, or CSAM, online.
Yeah. The internet has unfortunately become a kind of a hub for this kind of material.
Right.
Creating it, sharing it, consuming it. It's a dark reality, but we have to face it head on if we want to protect children.
It's really disturbing to think that this kind of material is so easily accessible online.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that law enforcement and tech companies are up against when they try to to fight this?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges is just the sheer volume of content.
Right.
It's just a constant flood, and there's no way that human moderators can keep up with it.
Right.
So that's where technology comes in.
Okay.
Companies are using AI and machine learning algorithms to
Right.
try and detect and flag this harmful content, including CSAM.
So it's like a tech arms race.
It is.
Right. The methods get more sophisticated, but so do the tactics of the people who create and share this material.
Exactly. It's like a constant game of cat and mouse.
Right.
The people doing this are always trying to stay one step ahead. They use encryption, hidden networks. They even manipulate images and videos, so it's harder for the algorithms to pick them up.
So it's not enough to just have the technology. You also need people with the expertise, the resources to keep up with all these changes.
Right. You need law enforcement agencies with specialized units dedicated to online child exploitation.
Okay.
And they need to be trained in digital forensics, undercover operations, international cooperation, because a lot of these crimes cross borders.
So this is obviously a very complex and challenging issue, but
Yeah.
but what about, everyday people?
Yeah.
What can we do to help?
I think awareness is really important.
Okay.
Talk to your kids about online safety.
Yeah.
Teach them how to recognize grooming behaviors. Encourage them to come to you if they see something that makes them uncomfortable.
Okay.
And if you see something suspicious, report it. Most social media platforms have ways for you to do that.
That makes sense. So
Yeah.
so it sounds like we all have a responsibility to
Yeah.
be vigilant.
Right.
We can't just assume that someone else is taking care of it.
Exactly. Protecting children, it's a collective responsibility.
Right.
We need to work together as individuals, as communities, as a global society to make the internet safer for kids.
This whole deep dive, it's been really, really heavy, emotionally challenging.
Yeah, it has.
We've confronted some really dark things,
We have.
and we've had to wrestle with a system that sometimes fails to protect the most vulnerable people.
That's true.
But I think it's important to remember that even in all of this darkness, there's hope.
There is.
We've seen incredible dedication from law enforcement, from child protection organizations, and the resilience of survivors is amazing.
It is. It's important to remember that even in the face of these horrible acts, there are people out there fighting to protect children, to support survivors, and to hold these perpetrators accountable.
We can't change what these children have been through, but we can try to prevent it from happening to others. And I think that's where the hope lies.
Absolutely.
In working together and speaking up and in doing what we can to make a difference.